with a little bit of down home. Life's a line with a splash of soap, if you know what I'm talking about. Head on back to Comanche.
Hey, it's Jeremy Gryder, the e-commerce redneck, and today we have got a incredible guest, Brent Peterson, and he is a content expert. He is an expert in e-commerce and just an all-around great guy. Brent, it's so good to have you on. How are you doing, sir?
I'm great, Jeremy, and I don't want to use expert because there's people that know I'm like the dumbest guy in the room all the time.
Whatever. I don't buy it.
Yeah, thanks. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, I was really excited to get you on because, like I said in the green room before this, I feel like the 800-pound gorilla in the room is content. Is AI content okay? And if so, what for? And to what level can you use and trust AI as well? What kind of benefits? So I'd love to hear, first of all, maybe before we get into that, maybe do a little introduction, tell my audience a little bit more about yourself.
Sure, Brent Peterson. I started my entrepreneurial career back in 1992. Well, maybe even earlier in college. And, I'll fast forward to 2010 when I was introduced to Magento and started working on Magento then. Then fast forward to 2021 when I sold. The agency was called Wagento, which by the name you can kind of guess what we did. And I exited in 2023. And started another company called Content Basis. And that's kind of where my path started again, my discovery of AI. I wouldn't say discovery, but machine learning, like starting to really dive deep into machine learning. Mm-hmm. And at the time, I saw this post from a lady who I follow in the marketing world that said, hey, I can create 100 blog posts in a day and post it with her little platform that she had running. And I thought, yeah, I could do that too. And I think I signed up with either Jasper or one of those services, and I tried it. And, I was able to make 100 posts, but I realized quickly that, hey, it's not as easy just to create 100 posts and then publish 100 posts because, man, at the time, this is 2021 or 22, the stuff was garbage. Like the output content was just garbage and It read horribly. It was, let's just say 10x less than what it is today when you get something out of ChatGPT. So 2023, I founded this company called Content Basis. And I thought, hey, maybe we can do a little bit better on prompting and getting content up front and then having a human do that editing afterward. Mm-hmm. And what I again then quickly discovered is people's expectations of what AI could and should do is different than what AI can do. Right. So people were expecting magic at little or no cost and with little or no training. So that round trip from creating the content to editing the content to publishing the content, it took a lot of back and forth, just like you do with a human. Like if you hire a human person, a real person to edit and create your content or create and edit your content, mm-hmm. that round trip takes a while. You have to get that person up understanding your voice, your knowledge, whatever that thing is. AI is the same. There's no difference in how that is edited and created. But people expected in the beginning that this magic would happen and that AI content would go out magically. I did that for a couple of years, and then this year, 2025, I was approached by Content Cucumber, which is a human-first human-first writing company. Mm-hmm. And they'd really been hurt by ChatGPT. People, again, just feel like they can do it all by themselves. There's no reason to have a human involved anymore. Mm-hmm. And so we put together our heads, and Isaac Moray and myself now are business partners in Content Cucumber. And I made a significant investment to bolster the company to make it, nice. Get it above water and make it work. And so I've come round trip. Now I believe in human created content. Maybe some ideation is great in AI, but humans involved in that entire loop.
So you put your money where your mouth is.
And I really had to kind of humble myself and realize that that it's not as magic as it is, you know. And I see people now commenting, and I definitely see content out there that's still created with AI. And I think what's going to happen now is we're going to get this garbage effect or vanilla garbage effect, where all this content is created, but it's all the same. And it all reads the same, and it all sounds the same. So that's kind of like the trip that I've gone through. And, you know, there's a lot more to it than that, but, you know, that's the 10,000 foot view.
You know, it's funny. I always tell people, I'm like, 10, 15 years ago, you saw all kinds of stupid websites making money. Couldn't figure it out. Didn't know how they were doing it, but they were making money. And I just don't feel like that it's gotten easier. If anything, it's become more or less, you either do the right things in e-commerce or you're not going to find success, and I think one of these, the last 4 years I was at Big Commerce, I basically was a client development executive, and I would always push people towards creating their blog content and supporting what they had on the site with that, and it was as simple as good content would give the search engine something to latch onto when people were asking questions. And I would always tell them, hey, look, what are people asking about the most? Answer your own questions. Be the one filling that void when somebody asks that question, whether they're looking for you or not. And I see AI as maybe a tool to help with, but not take over the process. Like, for instance, I'm a very audio visual person. So sometimes I've got Chat GP trained, and I'll get in there and I will literally tell it what to write. I don't let it write for me. I tell it what to write, and then let it help me organize my thoughts better. That I like doing, but I'd love to hear, kind of details on how you see those things playing out.
Yeah, I mean, first I want to give credit to Sharon Gee from Big Commerce, who I just met on at the e-commerce forum by Darren Lynch, Irish Titans. Woo woo! Big shout out to Darren and his team.
Go Darren!
And you know what? She had a great presentation on the stage, and then I had a chance to interview her for Talk Commerce. But she really reinforced my thought on what's happening in the e-commerce space. People build their PDP page traditionally with maybe 4 or 5 bullet points, and that's what they expect it to work for everything, SEO, and now with AEO, GEO, AIO, that is not going to work. It never worked before, and it's even worse now if you're doing that for your e-commerce store. You need to pay attention to the content on your PDP pages. You need to pay attention to the content on your category pages to make sure that those are now being found by the answer engines that are searching and crawling your site. Mm-hmm. I can't stress the importance of content on all those pages. I think that Sharon really not woke me up, but just reinforced this idea in the back of my head that those pages are so important that on your site that you cannot afford to not help that content being supported.
Yeah, I agree. I love Sharon, by the way. She's a friend. I don't know if you know this, but I believe she's the one that got Big Commerce, Brent at Big Commerce, to buy Feedonomics, or Big Commerce to buy Feedonomics. And what an incredible mind. First of all, she's brilliant. But yeah, man, I also, I would like to hear what are some of your challenges as a professional in the content space right now, and what are some of maybe the falsehoods that people have out there that they think is going to work to their benefit, but really maybe is a trap?
Yeah, let's start with the falsehoods. And I want to emphasize that people have that Content Cucumber went through a huge degradation of clients. We lost clients because of ChatGPT, and because entrepreneurs and marketers feel like they could do everything by themselves now, and they don't need anybody in that team. And I know that I've seen posts. Graham Loopy from Wasserman Digital had a great post about, hey, I need a team of people, not a team of agents, to help me to build my marketing, right? A team of AI agents is going to give you ideation, but it's not going to give you that marketing pizzazz that you need. And it's certainly not going to be able to give you read-ready content that's out on your site that is human readable, right? So there's going to be this difference between human readable and AI readable. And I think, just talking with Sharon, some of those things came out. But the fallacy that you can do this by yourself, that you as an individual can run your entire company with just AI, is the fallacy. I mean, I can't think of another word to use. That you can't just do this by yourself. You need a team of people. So then that marketing person and then that marketing team is just more important. And you need those people, human beings, to help you to drive the strategy, then to create the content and make sure it's human readable. Now, once you have human readable content, you can then use AI to help increase that content and maybe, do Q&A parts, to do different sections that you could take that existing content and break it up into more content that's then AI readable. I think having a human written content in a blog post and then going back and using some AI to help you reformat some of that content for Q&A, for FAQs, for different parts of your site that would then be enhanced for the LLMs to come and crawl it and read it. So I think that is the first fallacy that leads into a solution that you can then employ AI to help to leverage that content for your site to be recognized. And I think the first question you asked me was some of the challenges. Is that right?
Yeah.
I think the challenges are getting marketing or getting your CTO, your CIO, your CMO on board with allowing the space for humans to iterate and even to work with AI and to come up with content that is on your site. I think that the challenge now is how much you pay for that content and then maybe the speed in which the content is produced. So I feel like the price for content has gone down and the speed has gone up. And if you're in the development space, there's always like three different things you can do. You can sacrifice quality, speed, or bandwidth. I can't remember the third one, but like you can't. It's not AI doesn't make it magic, right? There's still got to be somebody that has to read it. So the challenge is the price is lower, the expectation for speed is higher, and how do you meet that challenge as an entrepreneur or as a marketing leader or as a business owner, a merchant? How do you meet that challenge then as a marketer to deliver to those key stakeholders in whatever you're doing your work for?
And we had an article written about BigCommerce versus Shopify and why you would pick BigCommerce over Shopify. We were a BigCommerce heavy agency. We did get into Shopify, but it drove so much business. It was written so well and broken down so well. Probably a 3,000 word article, a little bit much, but it had some illustrations. It was engaging and we got business from it. And I think, to me, I've always preached content is king. Bad content's, to me, very negatory, too, because if it doesn't have true relevance when people get on the page, they're going to jump. That's going to affect your analytics. That's going to give you some data you don't want to see, I'm sure, as far as bounce.
Yeah, I mean, that's such a great point that your people still... That's another fallacy. People think the volume of content is where the magic is. It is not the volume, it's the quality. And I think what you illustrated perfectly that blog post was well written, and it had content that people wanted to read. So now we have two different types, two entities. We have human beings and we have AI that are going to read that content. AI is going to make a determination, is this content something that I can present to a user in ChatGPT who's asking a question about whatever you're selling? I want to sell Voodoo Donuts, and shout out to Voodoo Donuts in Austin, Texas. But I want to be able to market Voodoo Donuts to my users or to my buyers. Is this content relevant to Voodoo Donuts? Do I say I'm creating donuts in Hyderabad and that you should stop by our store in Honolulu, right? So, AI is going to come up with all kinds of crazy things that aren't true. It's going to make up all kinds of citations that nobody checked. that then are going to link to, the Fiji water supply station for your Voodoo Donuts, that then is going to just make your credibility and readability worse than it was before you started.
I agree. And I'll tell you a little pro tip though for like using Chat GPT for scrutiny. There is an app in Chat GPT called Monday, and it's pretty funny because it will scrutinize anything. You tell it give it the article and or PDP, and then tell it what you're trying to do, and it will make fun of it, which is kind of fun, but it sees all the holes pretty well. And I think stuff like that, and like you said, ideation, getting your thoughts together. But even with that, you got to check the sources, give me links. I need to verify this. I think the best case, and you mentioned this, and maybe you could speak to this, is the recent Deloitte debacle. With Chat GPT, and I believe it involved the government and everything else.
Yeah, I mean, there's endless debacles. I just wrote about the Klarna, is it Klarna debacle, where they fired 750 people and employed AI to do it.
Wow.
There's so many stories about how people are using AI to create content, and then it gets filtered into something that it's completely false. And I think we're going to just see a bunch of false stuff as well for a short time, or even a long time, that has been created and published, and then suddenly LLMs see it and they start seeing it as real. And if it gets propagated, that false content is suddenly real content, but it's still false, right?
Right.
I think that looking at the types of content and especially what you said about finding patterns, that's where you can really leverage AI to your advantage. And I think you gave a great example of what am I missing here. But there's a flip side to that too, because like ChatGPT will tell you what you're potentially missing in a article or whatever it is, but they will endlessly then give you ideas to make it better. And at some point, you have to stop because I've experienced this. My 2,000 word article, because it said, what about this? Suddenly turns into a 10,000 word article that nobody's going to read because it's too dense. And even if you've gone through, it's suddenly a small book rather than a blog post.
Yeah. Well, and I'll say, blog posts, I always tell people when I'm doing consulting, and where I tend to kind of fall in my consulting is I help people that are kind of stuck in their growth, but also people that have a really good idea and understand what they're getting into in e-commerce. Because if you don't, you have no chance nowadays. You're going to put up a site and be disappointed. That's what'll happen. But people that are willing to put in a little bit of work in the beginning and then hire professionals as they get going, or they're willing to invest money up front. That's really the attitude you have to have getting into this, because it's better for you to write your own content as an expert until you can get other experts helping you write more content. Because, again, it's not paid advertising. It's organic. And I just think blog writing and having that kind of attitude, it's going to take some work. If I want to grow, you want to see the biggest free advantage you can have, get this out of your brain. Get that content out of your brain. And if you don't know how to present it, find somebody that does and write articles and get that stuff up. Make sure it's relevant and authoritative and has good backing. But man, I can't tell you how many people, they would give me clients at BigCommerce, and those clients, I would help them, get into a growth pattern. And they were just amazed. I always said it was kind of like a fisherman with a small net. When you have very little content, it's kind of like having a small net, right? And then the more content that's valid and strong and worthy, it's kind of like having a bigger net where you can just catch more fish, and that's kind of how I look at it. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great example, and I have a tip for the listeners. One way to find content that you need for your website is to look at your Google Analytics, and deep down in your Google Analytics are the impressions that people are made on your site, and you can find out if you have something that you would like to promote there is something that is probably being found on Google on page 100 that nobody's ever going to see, but Google has discovered, and it's there, and you can start working on that content now to get it up in the ranking. So I call it opportunities, right? There's opportunities inside a Google Search Console that you can start to utilize to help you bring that content up. And it's all completely free. So just a little bit of work can find that. And then if you deep dive, if you hyper focus on that thing, I think the other mistake people make, Jeremy, is that people tend to want to do everything like a net, right? They want to get as much as they can.
Right.
But a lot of times, if you have those big holes in that net, those fish get through. If you need to start with that small net and make it bigger, but have that net smaller, so you're hyper focused on that thing you want to do. And I had a great experiment that I did a couple years ago on cricket protein powder. And there's another guy that lives in
that
in
sounds
Austin,
disgusting. Or actual crickets?
Yeah, you can use crickets to make protein powder. And I was on a podcast with Kalen Jordan. We were joking about I had just started Talk Commerce. I wanted to get a sponsor, and I said, "Geez," and I think one of us said, "If we only had a sponsor, let's get a cricket protein bar sponsor to get on the show." And as a joke, this is way back in 2021 or 22, I wrote an article about crickets, and it got immediate traction. And I doubled down on it, and by the end of that year, I was ranking number 1 for Talk Commerce in crickets, which is crazy, right? And it's literally crickets when I tried to go out and get a sponsor. Even though I had 300,000 impressions, I'd get 50,000 views on these articles, and I couldn't get anybody to. It was crickets. But the key there is I really found a niche that had nothing to do with anything, and I was able to make Talk Commerce then respond for crickets, which is crazy, right?
Well, you hear that the riches are in the niches. And I think, honestly, unless you are creating something completely new, which I had a customer called Ybell, had a really cool weight that it was triangular and it had all these, it was unique in the market. So it was built to be a niche. Did really well, sold the TRX, I believe. And they are a good example of being niche. But I think when you start a company, you shouldn't be looking for the Walmarts of the world. You shouldn't go after Amazon. You shouldn't go after Nike. This is not wise. It's going to do you no good. You're going to spin your wheels and you're probably not going to get what you want. But if you can find that slice of the pie, what I have found is people find that 10%, that 2%, that 1% of an industry that's blowing up and niche with their writing, with their backlinks, and focus on doing it right. Because I think it is the quality thing that really sticks out the most with you and what you've been saying is, look, I would rather have 1, 2, really good articles than 8 bad ones. And it's the same thing with backlinks. You can have 100 backlinks and get 1 or 2 really good ones. And the weight of those good ones is so much better. In fact, you want to get rid of those bad backlinks. And I'd say get rid of the bad content if you have.
Yeah, I mean, if you bring up 3 points. Number 1, I'm not convinced that backlinks are going to be a long-term strategy for SEO. I'll just throw that out there now, but okay. We'll wait to see it. 2, I think content and then combining your content, cannibalization is a thing, right? It's not just humans eating humans. It's your content being cannibalized because you have too many places that Google sees it at, and you're not able to combine it into that one page. And cannibalization is a great way to try to combine all your content into one page and garnish. If you have like 5% going to 20 pages, why not get 100% going to one page? That's going to rank much better. So I think those are some great examples of what you're talking about. And then the third part is just quality, because that bounce thing, the engagement rate, which I think Google calls it now, is so important. There's another part that's speed, and we have a Thursday live session now on LinkedIn, and we have a WordPress speed expert on, David Arago, that constantly talks about how your Lighthouse score will impact your LLM and your regular Google search. Nobody's going to wait. No human's going to wait 30 seconds for your site to load. An LLM is certainly not going to wait 30 seconds to try to read something. It's going to go on.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I think a lot of people suffer unnecessarily because, Cloudflare, if you're starting to get a lot of traffic, you have heavy media on your site, and you're not using something like Cloudflare to help serve up those media assets quicker, it's definitely hurting you. But there are so many agencies too that can take your site and increase that site speed, because usually it's because there were mistakes originally in the original build or the picture sizes, as well as different kinds of too many scripts and things like that. So you're so right. Site speed is still important. And it was, 10 years ago, we did a site speed project at Ecommerce, and they were paying to have people's sites sped up to help them, which, it's interesting. It all kind of plays together. But Brent, I really have enjoyed having you on. I got to tell you, I've enjoyed getting to know you better. It was so nice to finally meet you in New York at Shoptoberfest. And I've looked up to the content you put out. I'm always impressed. I always listen. And just super excited that somebody's out there being that loud voice in the content arena. But thank you for being on. If you want to plug anything, tell us where the people can find you and that sort of thing.
Sure. I'm on LinkedIn, Brent W. Peterson. I have a newsletter. I would encourage you to subscribe to the newsletter. I talk about e-commerce and AI, and I also have a new newsletter on Medium called Tuesdays with Claude that I typically will then also post onto LinkedIn. I do vibe coding, and I'm going through this journey of building an app that I've been hoping to have live for a couple of months now, but stay tuned for that. But yeah, look at I centralize. Trying to figure out one place. I centralize my content coming out of LinkedIn. So
I've been doing that too so far. I'm starting to get on YouTube a little more and TikTok and the others, but yeah, for me, I'm so business focused. That's really where it belongs. So
yeah, so Talk Commerce is the place where my podcast is, and LinkedIn is where I put up my content. So there you go.
Excellent, Brent. Well, thank you so much. We've enjoyed having you on as a guest, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Thanks.
Country boy off far from home, doing what he can to keep the lights turned on. This city man has got me headed south. I brought a girl from off the dirt road, a Sherman County cutie with a little bit of down home. Likes her line with a splash of soap, if you know what I'm talking about.